Hi friends, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. I got a lot of response from all of you out there asking how to make the friendship star, that, of course, not the outside. So the friendship star that I made in the video, the Continuum Quilt sew along that I did with Becca and Ian over on their channels. But people responded wanting to make this friendship star block. So here I am showing you how to make this lovely, not this color, and no border around it, friendship star block. So let's get started. Okay, so the goal is the star block. Obviously, we're not doing the borders. That's just because I was making it for the quilt and I had 2 blocks left. So the first thing that you are going to need to make this star is 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 4.5 by 2.5 inch rectangles. The next thing you are going to need is 5, and I can't separate them, but 5 2.5 inch squares. Okay, so 4 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles and 5 2.5 inch squares. Let's get started. Okay, here we are at the machine. Here is our 4 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. And we are going to take 4, not 5, because we have 5 of these 2.5 inch squares. We're going to take one of them out because we only need 4 for this part. And we are going to attach them to our rectangles. This is very simple. Right sides together, you're going to put it on the right corner, just like this. Now, if you have seam tape, that works perfect. But if you need a line, you could actually go ahead and press it in half, like so, and you'll get yourself a sewing line. Or you can place a ruler from corner to corner and draw your line with your disappearing friction pin or whatever pin or pencil you have at the moment. So we're just going to go ahead and use the seam tape, and we are going to sew from this top corner down to this bottom corner. So just going to line this up under the needle, and we're going to go from one corner down to the other corner. So let's repeat that. Right sides together. From one corner down to the other corner. And I'm out of bobbin. Look at that, how that happens during the recording of a video. 2 seconds. Okay, let's resew that again. One corner to the other. Okay, we're going to take another one. Right sides together, although I'm using a solid and there's no right or wrong side of a solid, and go the center out to the corner. One more time. All right, now all of those are sewn. I'm going to separate them. And then I'm going to go ahead and we're going to cut away that excess on the side. Now I am just going to scissor cut this 1/4 inch or about 1/4 inch. I'm not very good at that, but 1/4 inch away so that we have our seam allowance. So again, I'm just taking the scissors, lining them up about 1/4 inch and snipping that away. 2 more times. It's never perfect. You can also just use scissors and a rotary cutter for that. All right, now that that is pressed away, we're going to take these over to the iron and we are going to press these towards your darker fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and for now finger press them while the iron heats itself up. And we're going to take these over and press them towards that darker fabric. All right, now that those are pressed, we are going to arrange ourselves a friendship star. Just like this. And you're asking, why is there a hole in the middle? Because that's why. So we are going to partial seam this. So we're going to start out with our first piece, and that's going to be a partial seam. But make sure that you are making a square. It's literal, or not, you're making a square unit, duh. You're going to have all of these where the white touches the center. So it's literally, they're facing the same direction, just one turn each, as you can see. So the first one starts out with the white touching this with the long sticking out. Then the second one is one turn, as you can see, turned once. The white is touching the white. Then this one is two turns, one more turn since the last or two since the beginning. The white touches the white. And then your last one, again, white touches the white. So we're going to start off by moving those three out of the way, and we're going to start off with this piece right here. Okay, so I dulled the light so that you can see just a little bit better without the glare. So we are going to go right sides together, same as we do with any other piece. We're going to line up that corner right here, and we're going to stitch with a 1/4 inch seam right here, and you're going to stop about right here. Okay, so about an inch above where you're supposed to sew the whole entire thing. Stop about an inch before the end. Just like that. So I'm going to break thread. And then we're going to open this up. And I'm going to finger press this, for now, towards the center. Okay. Now, if you were to stick this back in this pile, you're going to grab that next piece up here on the top. So that next one on the top, we're going to go right sides together with that whole long seam right there. So now you have a whole seam from this side to this side, and it's stitched right here. The only opening is down at that bottom. So now you're going to stick this on here, and it should be exactly the right size, and we're going to line up that corner, and we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam. So lining up the top and the bottom. This time we're stitching the whole way down, and my seam likes to flip on this lip right here on my machine, so I'm going to make sure I watch that. We're stitching the whole way down on that one. Okay, so the whole way down, and now I'm going to go ahead and finger press this underneath, just for now. Okay, so now it's pressed underneath. So if you stick this whole thing back, as you can see, we have a block starting to form. So now you're going to grab this next one, right sides together, move that last one out of the way, and now we're going to have a whole entire seam right here. So we're going to line this up. Everything should be exactly the same size. Okay, we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam from the top all the way to the bottom. Okay. And then we're going to finger press this again towards the center. Okay. And now if you stick it back, you have one more piece to put on. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to fold this piece out of the way. And I'll make sure that that's laying nice and flat. We're going to put this one, just keep it out of the way. See, this is your partial seam. Just going to keep that out of the way. We're going to line this up on that top and down the side, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. Okay. We're going to again finger press that underneath. And all we have left now is to sew the rest of that seam together. So fold it over, right sides together, just like this. And you're going to go to right where you ended, okay? And you're going to go about, I don't know, half an inch above that. Or you can go right to it exactly, but I didn't backstitch, so we don't want it to fall apart. And we're going to stitch from there down. Okay? And then finger press that underneath, because we had already started finger pressing it underneath. And there we have a friendship star. So I'm going to go ahead and press this and show you one more time how to do this. All right, so there is the block. It should be 6.5 inches unfinished. And you should have a 1/4 inch seam at all 4 of your points right there. So when you add it into something else or border it or whatever you're going to do with your block, you should be able to keep all of your points. So let's do this one more time. I'm going to show you, but this time I'm going to show you from this angle. So I'm going to pull one of these out. So one of the 2.5 inch squares I'm going to pull out. The other 4 are going to get placed onto our 4.5 by 2.5 inch rectangle. So I'm going to line it up. It's right sides together. I'm going to sew from the center down to the corner. Again, mark it with your pin, use your seam tape, or fold it and create a line. That is totally up to you how you mark your things. I'm going to sew from one corner down to the other, just like this. All right, and then we're going to snip them apart and snip away a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just right here. You can do this with your rotary cutter again. That's up to you, however you want to do it. I find it easier if you just do a bunch of them and then sit and snip them while you're, sitting down instead of having to get up every time. Okay. Once those are together, I'm going to go ahead now and take them over to the iron, and I'm going to press every single one of these towards my dark. Okay. So it's easier if you just give them a little finger press first before you get to the iron, just to kind of give them a little bit of a shape. That way they lay flatter, because most of the time it wants to go this way towards the your accent color or your star color, but we're pushing them away from. That way we can have a flat block. So let's press these real quick. All right, now that they are nice and flat, we're going to align. We're not aligning anything. We're going to lay our block. So it's kind of easy to know that color touches this. So if this right here, if you're backwards like that, it's automatically noticeable. So we just want all of the big points in, and there's no way to stick them in this way. So it's kind of an obvious layout. And then we're going to put our white 2.5 inch square right here. We're going to start with this first section. Again, we're just going to sew partially down, leaving about, like I said, about 1 inch of space open. So I'm going to sew to about right here. Okay. And then I'm going to press this under with my finger like that. And we're going to grab that next piece because it's right there on the top. You take your whole pile and go, okay, that's the next piece. I'm going to take that top one, and you have a full seam right here now. So the rest of these seams until that last and final closure should be a full entire seam, okay? I want that seam every single time. I try to pull it nice and tight so that it'll stay, but it just hits that just right every single time. Okay. I mean, if they would have made this more flush, it would have been better, but that's okay. I can't complain. Again, right here, put it right sides together, line it up from the corner to the edge right here. Everything should line up. They're exactly the same size. Sew your 1/4 inch seam, pressing it under. All right, and you only have one more piece, and again, it only goes in that one way. See, you put it this way, it's backwards. So we're gonna put this one right sides together. We're gonna also move this out of the way first. I always do that. I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta move it out of the way, you know? Then we're gonna move it out of the way, lay this on here. You should have plenty of space to move it out of the way. Take a stitch, line the rest of it up. Make sure that seam does not fold over. At least in my case, make sure the seam doesn't fold over. I'm gonna finger press this again under. All right, and now you can see we only have the rest of that seam left to press. So we're just gonna flatten it out right here. Okay, line that end up there, making sure that that seam is pressed the way we want it. I go ahead and put my needle down about 1/2 inch into the previous seam and then stitch on down. Just like this. And now I'm going to finish finger pressing that underneath. And there we have another block. So I'm going to go ahead and press this and let's take a minute to look at what we've done. All right, so here is the finished block. Again, they are 6.5 inches unfinished. You should have a 1/4 inch seam allowance in each corner. Now, if you want this look right here from my previous block, you can make a bunch of these units right here, and I'll tell you how. And then what you can do is to make them float in a row, you would put one facing this way, one facing this way. And then your next one, and I'm going to show you because I'm going to add the pieces just to show you, you would have a 6.5 inch, let's put that up higher, a 6.5 inch on one side, and then an 8.5 inch on the other side. And that would go like this. So you would have staggering blocks. And then your next row, here we'd have a 6.5 on one side and an 8.5 on the other. If it was sewn on, your next row would stagger, oops, like this. So you would have staggering friendships stars. And then the next one would go like this, and the next one would go like this, or whatever way, because I can't tell right now with them not sewn. So they would be like this, that, and this. But again, you can get creative with it and have staggering blocks. So it would be a 6.5 added to one side and an 8.5 inch added to the other side. If you wanted to make a quilt out of all of this, and I would say this is a great stash buster, so you can just grab a bunch of leftover 5 inch squares, cut them in half, and then obviously make them 4.5 inches. So you would have your 2.5 by 4.5, and then depending on the size quilt you want to make, if you want to make like a small baby quilt or something, just grab, I would say, about 1.25 yards or 1.5 yards of your background fabric, and then you would cut your 2.5 inch squares out of that. You need 5 per block, and then for your strips you would need, see, this is why I don't ever do math for you guys, but I'm pretty sure 1 yard, I'm going to say 1.5 yards would cover a baby quilt size with your, pieces on the side. But you can also use scraps for this too. So you can have a colored scrap right here and a colored scrap right there. You can even do string pieces, so 2 1.5 inch strips, put together to make a 2.5 inch piece. And you can have 2 1.5 by 8.5 inch pieces for this side, 2 1.5 by 6.5, and 2 1.5 by 8.5 for this side, and have a totally stash buster from your scraps and make this. So, and you wouldn't even need background yardage because your stars could be all of another scrap color. So if I had a blue scrap left over, you know, like a blender blue, I could use that for the center of these. Or if I had, you know what I mean? Have fun with it, make it your own, because this is a really simple way to do the stars. And it definitely has like a really cool look to it. So I hope you enjoyed making these friendship stars. They're super cute. Again, use your scraps. I'm pretty sure this would be super cute in all scraps. So if you have a ton of 2.5 by 4.5 inch jelly roll strip, you know, like if you have a bunch of jelly roll strips left, or 5-inch squares, or just you randomly cut them because that's the kind of sizes I started cutting already, then you can just take and make these. You can just use a jelly roll and make a completely not scrappy. What, the word isn't coming to me. I can't verbalize it. What is it? I don't know. It can be uniform. That's what it is. A uniform scrappy, so that everything matches. So you can take a jelly roll and a couple yards of whatever, you know, fabric you want for your stars, and just make a bunch of these and put them together. Again, they are only 6.5-inch blocks, but you can do this with bigger sizes if you wanted to. I don't know the rule for that. I just know how to do this one because I've made this one like several times for several different things. So yeah. Anyways, again, if you haven't checked out the Continuum Quilt with Becca, Ian, and I over on Becca's channel and Ian's channel, go check out the replays. I'll put them in the description below this video so that you can watch those videos. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye for now.